our goal now was to investigate the action objective. We do know that the attacker defaced the website, which we saw in the incident scenario. And our goal is to like track how that happened. And what we're going to do in regards to getting to that point is to start by looking at the server catalog source and the IP addresses communicating with the web server, which we know is this server right here, this IP address right here. So let's go ahead and copy that, and I'm gonna go ahead and like just duplicate this because it's going to be over here. That way we can just focus on our incident.
You said because.
So we can just focus on our incident. All right, let's go ahead and do this, and then we're gonna make the search to be for all time, just because like this data set is like pretty old. I'm gonna go ahead and search that. These are two internal IP addresses. So given that we don't see any external IP address communicated with the server, we can try to see if we can find data flow in the other directions. We're trying to look at if there are any external IP addresses communicating to our internal IP address, and we didn't see anything here. So let's try to see if the internal IP address is making any communications to an external IP address, and we can just simply do that by modifying this to source and wait for that to run again. And then we can now look at destination IP address here. So let's go ahead and scroll all the way down, and we see DST, and let's make it a selected field. And we see a couple of interactions here. So we see I'm really not Batman.com, which is the website I got defaced. We see the same IP address for that. We see a 71.39 IP address. We see a Joomla.org, which kind of makes sense because if you remember, the CMS, which is the content management system for the site, is on Joomla. We see just HTTP. We see prankglassingbracket.jumpingcrab.com. This is immediately suspicious to me. We see this right here, which is also suspicious, like a bunch of characters. We see, because like this is not even supposed to be an IP address, right?
Wait, this is top 10 values for destinations from the compromised machine.
Yes, exactly. These are top 10 values. And then we see this as well, which does seem like this is, so if we analyze this, it looks like the attacker probably tried to encode this as like a MD5 hash or something. I might be wrong, but like that looks kind of weird. What do you think this payload what do you think this print payload is, Taddy?
Print MD5 looks like something written in Python, honestly. Acunetics, I have no idea what that is.
It's a vulnerability scanner.
Acunetics?
Yes.
Okay, so it's probably just bad Python code. I have no idea what this is.
Gotcha. I mean, we could try to see what it is. Let's ask ChatGPT what it is, because it is interesting. See, what is this? What is this payload getting outbound traffic from my internal server? Oh, so it's written in PHP. So it seems to be attending an MD5 function on the string Acunetics WVS security test and then print the result. However, this code alone doesn't necessarily indicate malicious activity. The MD5 function commonly used for, and printing the result may be a part of debugging or testing code, such as a test related to Acunetics web vulnerability scanner. So it does seem like it's trying to encode this, like it's trying to not encode, it's trying to hash this as MD5 and then print it, well, using PHP, which is quite interesting. I wonder why someone would do that, but obviously we know that the attacker was using the Acunetics web scanner. We also have this NS lookup to TSIJYX and then some more pretty weird stuff. So going back to TryHackMe, so it says, what is interesting about that output? What is interesting about that output? Usually the web servers do not originate the traffic. The browser or the client would be the source and the server would be the destination. Here we see 3 external IPs towards which our web server initiates the outbound traffic. So it does look like we're just looking at destination. We're supposed to be looking at a destination IP. Interesting. Okay, so these are IP addresses. So we do see traffic towards this IP address, which we do know we've observed from the initial attack, the initial brute force that was actually like the one that did the successful login. And this was the IP address that did the actual brute force. And these are 2 internal IP addresses and then some other IP addresses here. So we see 3 IP addresses. It seems like this is not 3 IP addresses, it's 2 IP addresses. So these are 2 IP addresses that the server initiates outbound traffic to. And there's a large chunk of traffic going towards these external IP addresses that will be worth checking. So let's go ahead and check traffic towards these IP addresses. I kind of find that kind of interesting because, I mean, we know that these IP addresses were, part of the initial attack. I wonder why like that is not naturally inferred, but let's go ahead and look at what that looks like. So well, we can just like click into and just add it to the query for the first one or the second one. All right. And we're looking at the URL. Let's see, SD URL. So it says the URL shows 2 PHP files and one JPEG file. Okay, so let's contextualize this. Let's contextualize this a bit. So we see source and destination. So from the internal IP address to this destination IP address, we see a PHP file, another PHP file, and a JPEG file. I remember this JPEG file looks like something we saw when we first got the incident, which is you have been defaced, your site has been defaced, and that seems like this the name of the file here. So it is kind of weird though that it's like kind of backwards. So I think what we could do here, or I mean what TryHackMe is asking us to do here, is to change the query and see where the JPEG came from. So let's go ahead and change this query to see where the JPEG came from. So we're going to make this part of the query, and then let's take this out. Actually, no, we're just gonna make this destination IP address. Destination IP address. We're not using this Suricata source here. Take that out. Take this out as well, and then pipe this into a table.
Wait, I'm a bit confused here. Which IP address is this? The destination IP?
So this is the server that was compromised. Yeah. So we're trying to find out how this file got into it. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So pipe this into a table, and then you want the column for time, for the source, destination IP address, and HTTP host name and URL. We have only one result for that. So we see at 22.19.10 in 2016, this IP address made a request to our internal IP address with this host name, and then this was the file that was part of that request. Very interesting. So we can confidently say that this IP address, which we do know was part of the brute force attack, was the one that actually uploaded, or was the one that actually, I'm trying to refer this back to like I believe the installation phase, because it does seem like there had to be a way by which this internal host pulled this file from that IP address. So I think that file, that executable that we saw last time, probably has something to do with this. That's my inference from this. So basically we can see that this file was basically downloaded from malicious IP address here. So basically probably when the attacker dropped that stager, part of whatever that stager did was download that IP address, or maybe they were able to use that stager to get initial access to the host, and then use that to download this file that was then used to deface the website. And it does seem like this file was being hosted on this site, which is what this IP address is behind, and then downloaded to the host here. So that is what happened in the actions and objectives phase, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so we're in the actions and objectives phase. So just to kind of reframe what we just did, we actually wanted to find out how the website got defaced, and we started by looking at the requests that were being made from the internal IP address to external IP addresses, and we saw that from the source of the internal host, there were not many requests being made. They were mostly made towards internal hosts, which might be a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it. Probably a bad thing, most likely a bad thing. But then when we flipped that and we looked for where the internal host was making requests to an outbound IP address, we saw that, well, when we flipped that and we looked at when outbound IP addresses were making requests to the internal host, we observed that in this case, the way by which this file got onto the internal host was by pulling it from this IP address, which is hosting this website here, which we saw in our initial query, and was able to download it and then eventually used to deface the website. So that explains the actions and objectives.
Your site has been defaced.
All right.
I honestly do not understand the point. I mean, I understand like activists and all that, but you're only defacing website, then what?
I mean, like, if it's an activist, then I guess that kind of makes sense as part of their objective. Don't you think?
That also just depends on how much traffic goes to the website. Usually the website that ends up getting defaced, or like certain companies, is gonna be one that doesn't get a lot of traffic. So no one's gonna see it anyway.
I don't know. Like, I imagine like if you want to like make a statement, you probably deface a very popular website though.
But that's not always the case though. It's not that simple, is it?
No, of course. It wouldn't be simple to just deface any website. But I mean, I think anybody can get it, like when it comes to defacement, I imagine.
Probably.
Yeah. All right. So let's answer your question. What's the name of the file that defaced the I'mReallyNotBatman.com website? It was this file. All right. Paste it. FortiGate firewall detected SQL attempt. What is SQL attempt? It's like SQL injection attempt. Yeah, it's supposed to be SQL injection attempt from the attacker IP 40.80.148.42. What is the name of the rule that was triggered during the SQL injection attempt? All right, let's see. So we're looking for requests from this IP address. So let's grab that. So this is going to be the source IP address. So let's go ahead and just clear this out. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to say source IP and equals to that IP address. So we get here. We're looking for the FortiGate firewall source type. So I have to actually specify that. Go back into events. I should probably take this table out. Figure out what the value is. Source type, FortiGate UTM, I believe. Yeah. All right, let's use that as part of the query. And then, all right, and then let's see. We're looking into URL, maybe. Yeah, definitely not URL. Let's see.
We're looking for SQL injection.
Yeah, there's like URI maybe, or something that shows the request or something. Let me see. Yeah, it should be in the URL, like at the end of the URL. It should tell us.
I would think so too.
Let's try to see URL equals something SQL, because if it's a rule, then it probably will have like SQL in it. See URL. Okay, so you have a bunch of these. Oh, okay, well, there's probably gonna be a rule. There should be a rule field as well. Yeah, rule ID. Yeah. Let me do this. Let me take out that because we're looking for the rule, not because if the attacker is doing a SQL injection, like they wouldn't put like SQL in the URL. It would be like try to give us an example of what it would look like in the URL.
Probably an apostrophe to close out the query, or parentheses. Just depends on the query type and what the database expects. But I would start by looking for a single quote, double quote, or open parentheses.
Right. That's what I would expect. But we're looking for the rule, not like the payload here. So, but yeah, I wanted to get more I wanted you to give more context into like to expect if you're looking at a SQL injection in the URL. All right. So I've added the rule as a field. Let's see, 26. Let me see. Let me look into the raw event to see if there's anything that could prove promising here rule wise. All right, so we've got event type, file name, action, pass through, message. URL belongs to an allowed category in public. Maybe the message, probably that would tell us that. Let's see, anything else? Anything catch your eye, Teddy? I'm gonna look into the messages though.
Isn't it supposed to show what rules get triggered in general?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find what field contains what the rules that get triggered for the FortiGate UTM. So let me see, maybe the message field. Message. Oh, okay. I think this is it. So yeah, I think these are the different rules. If you're familiar with like firewall rules, like sometimes they're kind of weird, like that. But I think this is it. So your webmiss http.uri.sql injection. Grab that one.
That's probably it, right?
That should be it.
199 attempts.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, 100%. So I think it's probably just looking for this part of it. Yeah, there we go. All right. So recap of what we just did. We investigated using Splunk to find requests that were being made from external IP addresses to the internal IP address hosting our web server, and also back and forth. And we were able to find that the web server downloaded a file from the from the malicious server being hosted by the attacker with that same IP address that we saw doing a brute force earlier on. And we said that was how the attacker downloaded that file that was used to deface the website. Now let's go into move into the command and control phase. I think this is going to be a very interesting one to see like what happened here. And it does seem like we're going to be dealing with some DNS here. So command and control, the attacker uploaded the file to the server before defacing it. So we just saw that. While doing so, the attacker used a dynamic DNS to resolve a malicious IP. Our objective would be to find the IP that the attacker decided the DNS. To investigate the communication to and from the adversary's IP address, we will be examining the network-centric log sources mentioned above. We'll first pick the FortiGate UTM to review the firewall logs, and then move on to the other log sources. All right, so now we're investigating command and control, and we want to first investigate using the network-centric log sources. So let's start by clearing this out, and we're going to be using the FortiGate UTM log source. So there's that. Let's first see how many events we have for just the FortiGate UTM log source. Again, I forget what UTM means. Is it universal threat monitoring? Last time I got it wrong. Yeah, I got it wrong again. Unified threat monitoring. I can't keep up with these like acronyms, man. Like, geez. Anyways, so we have 25, almost 26,000 events for the UTM. Let's go ahead and so we're trying to find the command and control activity, and our source of truth is we already know that the attacker was able to download this file that he used to deface the website. So we want to see what network centric artifacts are related to that file IP address wise that we can then use to trace back IP addresses we can use for further investigation. So since we know what that file was, let's actually go ahead and copy it right here, and that's going to be what we use as a pivot for our investigation into the network log source. All right, so our query here as run, and we see only 2 requests here. And again, this is how we're able to find out that it's simulated. So we see it's a demo01. That's a name of the host. Got him. All right. So we see a get request from this IP address, our internal IP address, to the jumping crab IP address. We see that request, and then another get request here, which is kind of interesting. 2 get requests. But yeah, so we kind of have validated the domain that the attacker is using for their command and control. Now we've only looked at HTTP and what else? And the FortiGate firewall logs. Command and control a lot of times is done using DNS. As a matter of fact, sometimes attackers actually use their command and control server as a destination for exfiltration. So like exfiltration over DNS. So basically they can like steal information, like let's say files, and then like just basically send that information from the internal server over DNS to their command and control server. So let's say the attacker's objective here was to steal information and then exfiltrate that information to their own server server, whatever the case may be, they could have done this over DNS. So it would make sense if we do look at DNS-based logs. So let's go ahead and change this because we do have access to a DNS stream as well. Let's see what that might look like. Certified Cyber Defender from Cyber Defenders. Part of the labs that you do actually goes over DNS exfiltration. I believe that's how that works. Is that a wrong query? Stream DNS. Let's see. Maybe we should. Oh, we might not find that in the DNS log. So let's take that out. All right. Let's do just this for that. Maybe. What am I missing? Let me take that out as well. Let's just do all the DNS logs. Okay. Okay. We have about 7,000 DNS requests. You know what? Let's do this. Let's pipe this into a table and see the requests. I feel like there's something missing in this DNS request. They're not missing, but like I'm not seeing what I want to see. So let's look at destination IP. Well, I want to start from like source IP, and then I want to also see. Let's see host name. I want to see the host name. Yeah, I want to see the host name as well. Source IP, host name. I want to see destination IP as well. What else can I look into? Let's see what is in there first. Okay, let's look for when there's something in the host name. Host name. I'm just trying to look at what is in the DNS logs because I mean there has to be something in the DNS logs. Okay, apparently that was not the right query to use. All right, let's do this from the bottom. Let's do this maybe. Oh, what if I'm not using the right host name field? Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, I am using the right hostname field. Host name. Oh, so like it's an interesting like it's a nested value. Okay. Anyways, see a bunch of host names, Cardinal Micro. I really do want to see like DNS requests being made to that IP address. Let me try to do destination IP is that IP address that we know. So let me see if I can grab it from here maybe. Destination IP address. Yeah, grab this and I want to see dest IP is that. So no DNS requests were made to that IP address. That's very interesting. Are you serious about that? Let me do this. And let me see source type. Very interesting. So there were no DNS requests made to that IP address. So okay, I thought I was going crazy or something. Very interesting. I do wonder like what the other IP addresses are doing, but well, apparently no DNS requests were made. However, we do know that the actual domain that's behind this malicious IP address is this domain right here. So if we do want to like, well, we could actually probably just use that as like a part of the query. So we could probably just say source type. Let's take this out, and source type is source type is DNS, and then let's just use that as a query for that, and then just do right here, and then run that. Okay, there we go. So there were requests made to that, and that was made to 8.8.8. Interesting. That was the destination IP address. That is the Google DNS IP address, if I'm not mistaken.
Google.
Yeah. So it looks like the query. This was a query to that destination domain. Message type was just query. Query type was just is an AA record. So there was really like nothing spectacular, I guess, about the requests that were made. And it was just 3 requests. Let's see what the second request was. This was the response or the reply. Oh, okay. So this is the host address, which is what we know is the compromised IP. Well, is the perpetuating IP address. So the way DNS works is you make a request to the DNS server. The DNS server then responds back to you. So this is what we're seeing here, which is like the response and a reply code. And then we see another query again here, right here. So I mean, if we follow this timestamps, this is 10, 11, 30, 429. So that was the request was being made, and then a response was made at 10:06. Okay, yeah, that's inverted. So let's actually, well, let's read from the bottom top. So this was a request that was being made, a query that was being made to this domain from the compromised IP address to 8.8.8. So I wonder if, so this is actually very interesting because if it was making a request to 8.8.8 and it was resolving to this, then probably means that the host is compromised, right? It means that probably someone changed like the host, like the internal DNS resolution for the file. What do you think, Teddy? If it's resolving to 8.8.8, if it's resolving this domain for 8.8.8, which is obviously like Google's like, DNS, right? 8.8.8 DNS. It's for Google's public DNS. So if it's resolving this domain to Google's public DNS, then it probably means that the host itself, something was modified for that to happen. Because you can do that with the host, right?
It would have been the Etsy host file. You can make the 8.8.8 point to whatever domain you want. It's just like how you can change localhost to point to your own domain.
Yeah. So that happened somewhere. Like if we want to see how that happened, we'll probably have to look into like the host logs. But that was kind of interesting to find because that was the first request, and then the response was this host address, and then this domain was what it resolved to, and then there's another request. So that's actually very interesting. I didn't expect to discover that. But to answer the question that we have for command and control here, here. What is the DNS? I believe it was that one that we just saw. So let's just grab it. All right, so let's get into the weaponization phase. All right, so in the weaponization phase, the adversaries would create malware or malicious document to gain initial access or evade detection. They also establish domains similar to the target domain to trick users. They create a command and control server for the post-exploitation or communication activity. And now we found some domains and IP addresses associated with the attacker during the investigations. This task would mainly look into OSINT sites to see what more information we can get about the adversary. So far, we found a domain, which is this domain we saw in the previous for command and control that was associated with the attack. Our first task would be to find the IP address that is tied to the domain that may potentially be pre-staged to attack Wayne Enterprises. In the following exercise, we'll be searching the online threat intel sites for any information like IP addresses, domains, email addresses associated with this domain, which could help us know more about this adversary. We're going to start doing some OSINT about this domain, starting with Robtex. Robtex is a threat intel site that provides information about IP addresses, domain names, and so on. Please search for the domain on the Robtex site and see what we get. We'll get the IP address associated with this domain. So let's go ahead and look up that domain on Robtex. This is actually my first time learning about Robtex. I've never heard of Robtex before. Interesting. I think I'm going to add it to my toolkit. I mean, not that I think, I am going to add it to my toolkit. All right. Okay. So we see the fully qualified domain name, the actual host name, the domain name. It's a .com TLD. The name servers are afraid.org, and then mail server is mail the jumping the crab, and then IP address is these IP addresses. Very interesting. I don't think we saw any of these IP addresses during our investigations, but we could actually take this back as like indicators of compromise and use it like for like threat hunts to see if we are making any more requests to this IP addresses just in case. All right, what else do we have? Reverse reports of the queried and related entities, SEO, what, Alexa, what else? So there's some subdomains, siblings, threat miner, shared. So siblings are domains that are host names on the same level, under the same parent level, not necessarily related in any other way. Very interesting. So, well, siblings are basically subdomains, right? I mean, this is a subdomain. Adjazad, easy there, Lev, Megam, no, yeah. And we have graph, history. Okay, this is interesting. What are we looking at next? So it says some domains or subdomains associated with this domain. We already see that. And then next we're looking for the IP address. So we do know this is our perpetrating IP address. Let's go ahead and look that up. I'm gonna leave this open. I'm just gonna like duplicate this and then scroll back up and then, dude, what the heck? All right, and then we're gonna throw this in here and then look it up. All right, so what do we see? This section shows a quick analysis of the given host IP address. It looks like this is hosted on Amazon EC2. Well, it's EC2, so we'll probably just see like where it might probably be. Let's see, threat miner. Okay, so we see what hosts might be using it. So we see Wayne Corp Incorporated is using this IP address, and we see different variations of Wayne Corp Inc. So Wayne Corp Inc., Wayne E Core Inc. All right, so next one we're gonna look at, but yeah, we kind of see like there's an intent here with trying to register a domain similar to Wayne Enterprise. VirusTotal. So we know about VirusTotal. Let's search for the IP address on VirusTotal and go into the relations tab. All right, let's do that. Let's go to IP address. I can probably hear that in my mic. And it says, if we go to the relations tab, we can see all the domains associated with this IP address, which looks similar to Wayne Enterprise. So relations. Okay. So we see even more. So again, even poisoniv.com, www.poisoniv.com, some malicious files as well that have been scanned, communicating with these files. Miranda Tate, screensaver. Interesting. But yeah, a bunch of really interesting things in the relations here. But I guess this is part of the OSINT we're doing. We're looking at communications. We're looking at DNS resolution. We're looking at communicating files referring, historical whois lookups, and then also a nice graph summary here. I don't believe you have to sign in to actually get details about these resolutions, but more OSINT there using VirusTotal. So yeah, so we see poisoniv.com. So we can actually go ahead and pivot to another search for poisoniv.com. So let's go ahead and grab that. Okay, we just like open this in a new page. Yeah, and basically this says it's clean. Details, last HTTP certificate, whois lookup activity, all of this stuff is redacted. It's in the Netherlands. Interesting. There should be more stuff, maybe like files and stuff. Relations, maybe. Okay, so we see like passive DNS replication, siblings. We see some interesting subdomains as well. FTP, Ilian. So maybe FTP for like file hosting or file transfers. Maybe SMTP, some files or a file. Keytap.pdf. Interesting. Community. Everyone's saying bots v1. That's funny. All right, what we're doing next. Next, we're going to look at the whois information for poisoniv.com using DomainTools. This just reminds me so much of my suck days. We're looking at the whois record for this, and we see Poison Ivy is actually hosted in Cloudflare. Interesting. I love Cloudflare. And we see a bunch of things about it. So it's in Hong Kong. Okay. It is registered and there's no website. Maybe it was taken down. 17 changes. There's different histories for it. So probably like it's actually a really cool one because I'm making a video on the Pyramid of Pain. It's a very long video, but basically IP addresses are very easy and trivial indicators. So it's easy for an attacker to basically change their IP address. So it's not a good way by which you can block them or like detect them because like it's very easy for them to change. Domain names are like a level above that because like you have to like re-register the domains. We can change the IP addresses, which is like a lot faster. So you've probably seen like, you know, a lot of different IP addresses here for this same domain, maybe through like redirection or maybe through like actual hosting for the domain, because maybe if they're discovered, they can easily just change that indicator, but still maintain the same domain, right? Because it's more difficult to like register a new domain every single time. Like you got to pay for the register, you gotta set it up, you gotta wait for the propagation. Like it takes like I think like 24 to 48 hours and all of that. So yeah, this could be the reason why there's like a bunch of IP addresses, because they probably just kept the domain but not the IP addresses. And we can actually just see screenshot history. It does look like a Chinese. I mean, obviously it says it was hosted in Hong Kong, so this was like some Chinese on there. Though we're not doing this. I have an account, but we're not doing that. But yeah, so we already know this is like, you know, obviously like very malicious. Poison Ivy. All right, so we've gotten some details about what happened here. Well, not what happened here. We've gotten some open source details about this IP address and, you know, what it does and all of those things. The different things is hosting, communications, and all of those things. Now let's answer the question here. What IP address has Poison Ivy tied to domains that are pre-staged to attack Win enterprises? We do know that this IP address has its connections to various domains that are pre-staged to attack Win enterprises. I don't think it's to attack Win enterprises. I think it's more to impersonate Win enterprises. More to say, but it's the wordings could be different. Based on the data gathered from this attack and common open source intelligence sources for domain names, what is the email address that is most likely associated with the Poison Ivy APT group? Let's go ahead and see. Maybe here we can find it in the whois record. So let's see, maybe somewhere in here. Let's see if we can find an at. If I find an at here, maybe in here. Probably would be in here. There's no at here. Go ahead and search for them here. I'm also going to just like a global Google search for them. Actually, let me see this here first. Alexa, threat miner. Okay, we see a couple of things here. No email though. What's DNSPL graph? All right, let's do a general Google search for that. Lillian Rose?
Do we see a name?
That's an interesting one. It could be Lillian Rose.
Where did we see that from?
Huh?
Where did we see that from?
We never saw that, but it does seem like they're related in some way. So
Bro, I'm talking, my mic's not even on.
Okay, so we do see that. Who owned it in the past? Lillian Rose. So it has to be Lillian Rose. Yeah, it should be Lillian Rose. It's the power of see that? That's the power of a Google search. So yeah, it was Lillian Rose. Very interesting. That sounds like so fictitious. That like sounds like so unreal. All right, we're in the last phase, and now we're in the delivery phase. So in the delivery phase, the attackers create malware and infect devices to gain initial access or evade defenses and find ways to deliver it through different means. We have identified various IP addresses, domains, and email addresses associated with this adversary. Our task for this lesson would be to use the information we have about the adversary and use various threat hunting platforms and OSINT sites to find any malware linked with the adversary. Threat intel reports suggested that this adversary group, Poison Ivy, appears to have a secondary attack vector in case the initial compromise fails. Our objective would be to understand more about the attacker and their methodology and correlate the information found in the logs with various threat intel sources. And we're going to use 3 OSINT sites. One is going to be VirusTotal, second one will be Threat Miner, and the third one will be Hybrid Analysis. If you've worked in a SOC environment or as a security analyst, you're probably familiar with all of these different sites. So we're going to start our investigation by looking for the IP in Threat Miner. Just grab that and open that in Threat Miner. Okay. All right. So, it automatically opened it. So here in Threat Miner, what are we looking for? So we see the host, geolocation, APT nodes, interesting, passive DNS, associated DNS, us malware samples. Oh, very interesting. So we see there are different malware samples associated with this file. So we see the MD5 hashes. This one, there are no detections. This one, there are no detections. Excuse me. This one, there are detections for it. So we see Trojan by different antivirus systems. Backdoor, Trojan, all the way down. Let's see. Let's go ahead and click into this and see where it leads us to. Okay, so the file name is Miranda Tate screensaver.scr.exe. Remember, we actually saw this in our VirusTotal search earlier on, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere as a file related to this. Yeah, so right here, communicating file. So that is actually not surprising. So the file size, all that fun stuff. So yeah, this basically gives us details about possible malicious files that are associated with this particular malicious IP address. Let's go on then to look into VirusTotal. So open VirusTotal and search for the hash on VirusTotal now, and you can get more information about metadata about this malware. Let's go ahead and do that. So I guess we can pivot from threat miner with that hash that we know has detections into VirusTotal and search that hash, and we see that it's flagged as malicious by 52 out of 71 vendors for various things. So whether it's like malware, backdoor, Trojan, whatever the case is. Next, we have hybrid analysis. Hybrid analysis is a beneficial site that shows the behavior analysis of any malware, and you can look at all the activities performed by this malware after being executed. This is like VirusTotal on steroids, basically. So let's go ahead and go to hybrid analysis here. Well, we have to, I guess, look for that ourselves, and we're just gonna paste that hash that we have here again. We're gonna search for hash, file URL, report search,
String search.
Oh, this is hex ASCII string. Report search. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is the same hash for bounty something, and then Miranda Tate. Obviously, we do know like what we previously saw was Miranda Tate. Let's check out what it says about Miranda Tate first. So basically, in our behavior, it contacts one host, which is this IP address, which we do know about, which was the perpetrator. And then for MITRE techniques detections, it has 7 attack techniques and 6 tactics. Let's look at that. So it does defense evasion, basically software packet or virtual machine software protection to conceal their code, credential access and collection. So it may adversaries may hook into Windows API to collect user credentials. Discovery, adversary may attempt to get detailed information about the operating system and hardware and other stuff. More discovery stuff for the query registry. So it's basically getting registry information about the software installed, system configuration, and all that stuff. Collection, command and control, impact. So basically doing a bunch of things that you would expect from malware, essentially. All right, so we've seen that. Indicators, sample was identified as malicious for various antivirus systems. We already saw that. Suspicious indicators, we see found a cryptographic related string. Let's see what that looks like. Details, DES, source file, memory, relevance, 10 out of 10, attack ID, T1486. We could go look at that in the MITRE attack matrix if we wanted to. General sends out UDP traffic. So these are different indicators that hybrid analysis is using to determine and, you know, basically say, oh, this is malicious, right? So UDP connection to this IP address, which we already know, persistence, these behaviors, a bunch of other things, basically. Informative, some anti-reverse engineering behaviors, environment awareness. So this is what malware would do to kind of understand where it is before, you know, going on to do whatever it needs to do. And we have more details about the file. It's a executable, file metadata, file sections, file resources. So it basically gives us a really good digest of like what this file is doing, which, you know, helps us understand that this is malicious and why it is malicious as well. All right, so let's go ahead and answer the questions here. What is the hash of the malware associated with the APT group? I think we already got that, which is this. What is the name of the malware associated with the poison ivy infrastructure? Then we got that. It's the something Tate screensaver or something like that. Yeah, Miranda Tate. Yeah.
PUBG.
This is from like 2016, bro.
They were ahead of the time.
That's hilarious. All right. Okay. So we're done with that. Let's go ahead and recap what happened so far. In the reconnaissance phase, we first looked at any reconnaissance activity from the attacker to identify the IP addresses and other details about the adversary. We found that the IP address 40.80.148.42 was found to be scanning our web server, and the attacker was using a Acunetics vulnerability scanner as a web scanner. Next, we have the exploitation phase. We then looked into the traces of exploitation attempts and found brute force attacks against our server, which were successful. The brute force attacks actually originated from the 23.22.63.114 IP address. Now, the IP address that was used to get access was the 40.80.148.42 IP address. 142 unique brute force attempts were made against the server, out of which one was successful, which was the one from 40.80.148.42, whereas the brute force attacks all came from 23.22.63.144. Next, we have the installation phase. Here we looked at all executables that came from the attacker's IP address that was uploaded to our servers. We found that there was a malicious executable called 3791.exe that was uploaded by the attacker. We then looked at the sysmon logs and found the MD5 hash of the file. Moving on to the actions and objectives. After compromising the web server, the attacker defaced the website and basically uploaded a picture saying your website has been defaced. And we examined the logs and found the file that was used to deface the web server. After that, we moved on to the weaponization phase, where we used various threat intel platforms to find the attacker's infrastructure based on the following information we saw in the above activities. So we knew that the domain that was used was the prankinglassin bracket, the jumpingcrab.com domain, which was hosted under the IP address 23.22.63.144, which we do know was the perpetrator. And then we also found behind this domain, we also found multiple domains that were masquerading domains under the attacker's IP address. We also found a very interesting email, which was lillian.rose@poisonivy.com, which is also associated with the attacker's IP address. Moving on to the final phase, which was the delivery phase. Here again, we leveraged some open source intelligence using some online threat intel sites to find the malware that was actually associated with the adversary's IP address. So we used VirusTotal, we used Threat Miner, and we used hybrid analysis to find the secondary attack vector just in case the initial compromise failed. And we saw that the malware was named Miranda Tate screensaver.scr.exe, and it was associated with the adversary. And we also found the file hash, which is the MD5 hash of that particular file. And that essentially concludes everything that we just did from start to finish. If you've made it this far, I'm sure you've learned a lot. To help you solidify your learning, here are 2 more videos for you. The one on my left teaches you everything you need to get started with the Splunk processing language. And the one on my right is another investigation, but this time digging deeper into a Windows intrusion attack. I'll see you over there.